To me, the Royal Rumble will always be main evented by the Royal Rumble. I know that over the history of time, we've seen a few matches, a lot like Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, being involved in the casket match. It was sort of looked at as the main event because it closed out the show. But to me, like I said earlier, the road to WrestleMania starts with the Royal Rumble because the winner of the Royal Rumble goes on to WrestleMania to wrestle in the so-called main event of the show. This year, to me, is not overwhelmingly obvious who the winner is going to be. I know that there's only a few guys that there could be, storylines for them to win the Royal Rumble and go on to WrestleMania. And there's going to be a lot of other guys that just sort of fill out the actual number of guys that are going to be involved in the match. On WWE.com right now, there's only 17 competitors named for the show. I know that over the history of time, they've always sort of filled the pre-show out by having one year they had a tag team match where the guys competed in a fatal four-way where there was 8 guys competing to be involved in 2 spots for the Royal Rumble. So that's one way of always sort of filling out some time for guys to be involved in the match. But there's going to be a lot of guys that just sort of grab numbers and nobody's going to know who they are until they come out, and it doesn't really matter who it is. When you look over the guys that are involved in the match, more than half of them, there's no chance in hell they're going to get a shot in there. John Cena was the first competitor to name himself eligible for this year's Royal Rumble. I think that he is a guy that we can talk about winning the Rumble. Finn Balor was number 2. I think that Finn definitely deserves a bigger spot and a bigger role in WWE. The one thing that I learned from Raw 25 is not believe everything you hear about Finn Balor not being over. Triple H and the clique involving DX and Scott Hall giving the rub to the Balor Club, I think honestly was a really big deal, especially with Triple H grabbing Finn's hand and moving him closer to the end of the ring, closer to the camera side. I think that was telling everybody that's Triple H's guy. And maybe even if Vince doesn't 100% believe in Finn right now, there's going to come a day when Triple H is going to make this guy the motherfucking best wrestler in the world because that's what he gives us out there. Randy Orton is the guy from SmackDown. He won the Rumble last year. It was the rumored guy to win it. I didn't really want to believe it that was going to be him. But, he ended up being the guy that won it. I don't see him doing it 2 years in a row. Nakamura is probably my choice because I think this anoints this guy as being a big deal. When Nakamura was brought up to SmackDown, a lot of people thought that Nakamura was going to become the new face of SmackDown. So what I guess you can say the anointed new John Cena to be out there. I think that he is the guy that we can talk about being the winner. From there, we just go to guys like The Miz. One hell of a wrestler. Rolling Stone might want to say that he's the wrestler of the year, but there's no way in the world that I think The Miz is going to win this WrestleMania. Then we're filled out by Elias, Baron Corbin, Woken, Matt Hardy, Bray Wyatt. These are all really good characters for Raw. But I don't think there's a chance that any of these guys are going to be walking out the Royal Rumble champion because there's no way to tie them into a championship match. Then we just go to Jokes of the Year with Aiden English, Rusev, Titus O'Neil, Apollo Crews, Titus Worldwide. Roof, roof. There's no way in the world that these guys are going to be getting it done. Ty Dillinger, one of my favorite guys on the main roster, 10, 10, 10. But he's not going to be winning this. Big E, Kofi, and Xavier, they're a tag team. I guess you could finally do the storyline that they used years ago where, Big E and Xavier wrestled in a tag match and then Kofi Kingston wrestled in the Money in the Bank ladder match. But I'm tired of talking about that. It doesn't seem like they're ever really going to sort of use this as a faction instead of just using it as a tag team in the tag team division. John Cena, I came up with an interesting thing that if Cena was to win the Royal Rumble, Cena could take an interesting technique where he says, I understand that over the history of time, the winners of the Royal Rumble have said they wanted to fight for either the Raw or the SmackDown championship. I want to cash in my Royal Rumble to have a different type of match where I compete against the dead man at WrestleMania. I guess you can say win, lose, or draw. There is a way to get Cena to Undertaker at WrestleMania, which I'm still not letting go of as my dream match for this year's WrestleMania. There was too much smoke for there not to be some sort of a fire where they're talking about Cena versus Undertaker at WrestleMania. And I think that, there's a couple different ways to get there. And I think somebody winning the Royal Rumble and basically saying, I don't want to use it on a championship match, makes the match at WrestleMania mean even more. Finn Balor, to me, is honestly one of the coolest and one of the best wrestlers out there. As of right now, it seems that Balor is going to be getting used a lot with this Balor Club idea that, basically the fans have been looking for the past year to 2 years. Since Luke Gallows and Machine Carl Anderson came over from New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't really see this being the Rumble where he gets it done, but I do think it would be awesome for him to finally compete in the WrestleMania big match. Last year we didn't get him because of the fact that he was injured, and he was trying his best to train to come back, but he missed the deadline, and he had to, I think he came back the night after on Monday Night Raw, because I think it was just too late to enter him into any kind of storyline to have the match at WrestleMania mean anything, and you don't want to just have this guy come out for the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I think that honestly, Nakamura is the guy that if he was able to win the Royal Rumble, I think that Nakamura is the guy that could go to WrestleMania and have a really good match against AJ Styles, who is the champion right now. That is a match that we've seen in the past at Wrestle Kingdom 9. It was that one, right? Or was it Wrestle Kingdom 10? One way or another, we've seen this match on a Wrestle Kingdom on the big stage, and they were able to deliver a really, really good match. I think that AJ and Nakamura could plan out a match, whether if they wanted to have it sort of that New Japan style to show a lot of people a match that they've never seen before, where they're not going to be afraid to hit each other and just beat the shit out of each other like they did at Wrestle Kingdom, or just go out there and have a really crisp, clean, I don't want to say spot fest with a lot of oohs and ahs before, finally the winner comes out on the end. Definitely, to me, I thought it was a little funny that Nakamura was able to go out and defeat John Cena on SmackDown to become the number one contender to have matches against Jinder Mahal, where I believe it was Nakamura versus Jinder at SummerSlam, and then I believe 2 pay-per-views after that, when it would have been a lot easier for Cena to go into SummerSlam and sort of have the USA versus India match, instead of having the Nakamura sort of have Japan versus India, where Nakamura would get his first title shot against what was looked at as a weaker competitor than he was, and have Jinder overcome the odds and defeat Nakamura 3 times in a row. To me, I sort of looked at that as WWE saying that Nakamura was a big deal, being involved in the main events of these SmackDown shows, but they wanted something later on down the road where he would not win the title at SummerSlam. He won the big one at WrestleMania, and that is something that people could grab hold to and really think that this is a big deal. I'm really looking forward to this year's Rumble. I think that Nakamura, to me, honestly, is the overwhelming odds favorite to win it. As you heard from me, there's only 2 guys to really think of as a chance to win it. Roman Reigns has not been named for the Rumble, but I think that he is going to be in there. I would not be surprised that Roman has to compete at the Elimination Chamber from Monday Night Raw to earn his shot. So even though the Roman, I think, is going to be in the match, he'll probably have, Jason Jordan, Seth Rollins, Cesaro, Sheamus, they'll be pulling double duty, being involved in the Rumble as well. And for Monday Night Raw, those guys all have chances to win, but I think that when it comes down to it, I think that we see Nakamura come out with the win, and this is sort of like the crowning. He's the king. He wore the crown in freaking Japan. I think this is the crowning moment for him to actually be that main event guy for WWE and take us higher. For WWE, I know that they have the Elimination Chamber coming up around the corner, which leads us into WrestleMania. I'm guessing that SmackDown has some sort of show in February, but I guess it's not guaranteed because Raw didn't have a show in the month of December, and I've always heard that WWE is going to be doing less shows. But this is the kickoff on the road to WrestleMania. I think a lot of people are going to be going to New Orleans this year, one of my favorite places that ever hosted a WrestleMania. So, guys, I'm really looking forward to this show. Raw 25 might have been a letdown, but I think this is going to be a good one.